Hey, Doc, are you planning to be the coach of the team next year?
Yeah, I think I got 2 years left. So,
given the tenor of what you've seen happen in the last 2 or 3 days, where coaches of the year, guys with titles.
Yeah, no one's safe in our business, and I get that.
Truer words have never been spoken, Natalie. Truer words have never been spoken from Glenn Doc Rivers when he says, no one is safe in our business. His business is the coaching business. Well, I would say that's his profession. That's what he's writing on his tax documents.
Right.
For 2000, at the end of 2023, he'll say, yeah, I'm in the coaching profession. I don't know if he'll have a job at the end of 2023 because he lost his job today with the Philadelphia 76ers. They moved on from Doc Rivers after 3 straight years, Natalie. 3 straight years of being in the Eastern Conference semifinals and not getting out. 2 really gut-wrenching Game 7 losses. They lost in 6 to Miami last year. But the year before that, that was the Ben Simmons Game 7 loss to Atlanta.
Yeah.
This year, we just saw it, the Jayson Tatum, 51 points. This is my game against the Celtics.
That's your favorite part, huh?
Yeah. That's my favorite part. I tell you, another favorite part of mine from that, Jayson Tatum. Just reading this list was so much fun. So he had that one. This is my ish. He had what? After one of them, he's like, what?
Yeah.
My favorite one was a very innocent, very childlike, oh my God! After he made one of the threes, he's like, oh my God! He was having a good time. I'm tearing up my equipment here.
Yeah. Just if we're just talking about Jayson Tatum really quickly, my favorite thing was the precursor to the game. The humbly speaking, I'm one of the greatest players in the world, or best players in the world.
Humbly.
Loved it because he doesn't normally speak like that. So I was like,
he really doesn't.
That's right. Go ahead, Jayson. I was so amped.
Yeah, I think he was talking to somebody. I think he was talking to, because NBA players, they talk to each other all the time. If you saw after Game 6, Tatum. We'll talk about Philadelphia in a second and Doc Rivers. So we're not going to lose our place. Welcome to Brother from Another. This is what we do. We roll. We talk.
Yeah.
We just having a conversation. Thanks for listening on Sirius XM Channel 85, watching on Peacock TV or the Peacock app, which is free. Download that thing and just watch the show for free. Why wouldn't you? Anyway, after Game 6, we had that great fourth quarter. See the cameras follow him, and Donovan Mitchell is there in Philly. And Jayson Tatum and Donovan Mitchell just start chopping it up, and then he goes on and do his interviews. I think NBA players are having conversations all the time about what they like and what they don't like. And somebody probably told him, probably hyped him up. Come on, bruh. It's Game 7. You one of the best in the world, man. Come on. Come on. Win this series. But tell me, what are your impressions when you learned today, this afternoon, that Doc Rivers was fired from the Sixers? What did you think?
I mean, I don't think any of us were surprised. I wasn't surprised. It's unfortunate because I'm not saying like I'm happy about it. I think it was the right thing, but you never really like to see someone losing their job. But it's probably time. I think what happens with Doc is going to be really interesting because he's a coach even before he landed here, as our friend Dr. Jason Johnson has come on and stated, and as we've talked about Doc Rivers before, he's one of the coaches that has been able to stick around, and you can argue has probably underachieved in most of his roles. And I'm not going to say his coaching, positions. And I mean, even when he was in the front office at the Clippers, that eventually didn't work out for him. And so. And I think for a lot of us, we look and we say it's sort of odd because he's a black man, and he's been able. We don't usually have that privilege, and so we just don't. So it's like
tell the truth, Natalie. Tell the truth. You're speaking truth.
So it's like I'm not gonna say. Obviously, there's something. He's won a championship before that cannot be taken away from him, and I'm not here to say that Doc Rivers is an incompetent coach, but in terms of wanting results and getting what you're looking for, and we can often look and say there are times that, like a Monty Williams, that termination doesn't make any sense, right? And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with Doc Rivers, we have multiple examples now of him having different groups and them underachieving, and you can look and question some of his coaching decisions, you know? The same thing for Bud, by the way, who was also terminated, even though he recently won a championship. So, you know, I'm looking at these changes, and it's easy, especially when people look at, like, if they were teams that recently just won, and they say, well, my God, these teams just had all this success. Why are they terminating their coach? And sometimes, like I say, the process is flawed, even though you get good results.
Yeah.
And so outside of Monty, honestly, most of these coaching terminations make sense to me, and I support them.
Look at the stat, though.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Look at
right?
the stat. Most regular season wins the last 3 seasons, and they all moved on from their head coaches. Suns 1, Bucks 2, and Sixers 3.
Yeah.
And all of them are looking for a coach. I would say this, Natalie, and I'm just talking about a long time ago. This is not me talking about my life right now. I'm just talking about a long time ago. Long time ago. I just want to make that clear. Long time ago. I just say breakups are hard. Breakups are hard, and you know you've done the right thing with the breakup when you end it and you feel, I mean, it's a little bit of sadness because it's something that you wanted, something you invested in, didn't work out. But you feel liberated. When it's over, you feel better. There's like a weight lifted. And I just want to know from Philadelphia fans out there, 'cause I'm going to tell you the answers. I'm going to tell you how you
know
feel.
the answer for
okay?
that, yes.
I'm going to answer it for you. Do you feel better now with Doc Rivers gone? And if you do, you're missing the point. You haven't learned from your previous relationships. If you feel better that Doc Rivers is gone, okay, that's not it. Is Questlove happy now? Is Questlove happy? I see, man. Is Kevin Hart happy? Y'all ain't happy. Look, Doc Rivers is gone. 3 years, no conference final appearances. He's got to move on. But think about it in Philadelphia. And I'm not even a Philadelphia fan. I can just do it off the top of my head. Think about all the people that you blamed during the evolution or de-evolution of the process. So Sam Hinkie was the guy. He was a good guy until he wasn't.
Right.
So blame Sam Hinkie. Blame Sam Hinkie. Blame Brian Colangelo. Blame Ben Simmons. Blame Markelle Fultz for not working out. Blame Jimmy Butler for leaving. Blame Jahlil Okafor. I don't know. I mean, there's so many names. There have been so many names in Philadelphia lore of, oh, it's his fault. Or if he had done this or he had done that. Bottom line is, no coach can save Philadelphia. No coach can save you. You bring in Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse ain't going to save you. Mike Budenholzer ain't going to save you. Monty ain't going to save you. I was talking to a guy last night. He was like, hey, why not Jay Wright? Jay Wright? Jay Wright is chilling in his beautifully tailored suits, coming off of a couple of championships in Villanova. He ain't going to Philly. That's bad for his reputation. He ain't going to the Sixers. The Sixers? I mean, it's good for the bottom line. It's good for the paycheck. But what can Jay Wright do that's going to turn around these guys? See, their problem is they got the wrong guys. They got a great MVP, but they brought in James Harden. What do you expect? Daryl Morey had 8 years in Houston with James Harden?
Wow.
And then you have 2 more in Philly with James Harden. Yeah, that ain't it.
Yeah,
that's not it. James Harden's not it.
So look,
what do you think?
Look, our own Michael Smith went off yesterday on the Sixers, and he said they're frauds until further notice. And I think you, Michael Holley, have also.
They're less than frauds. They're dead.
They're dead. Okay.
They're dead. Philly's dead. Philly is dead. Philly, as we've known them, the Sixers are dead.
But you have alluded. Look, I understand people have feelings about Joel Embiid, and we can talk about that. But at the end of the day, he is an MVP level player. He is a top player in the league. So if you have a player like that on your team, you're going to always be a team that's fairly good, right? So I don't think he bears part of the blame, but at the end of the day, his body is his body, right? And I think that's something you have to come to accept as the Sixers. Like, his body may not hold up on us. So what is the right kind of co-star? What is the right kind of number two that we're going to have to support him and supporting cast in the event that happens? You know, he probably needs to, at this stage of his career, be treated like a Kawhi Leonard, and then you hope for the best in the postseason, as in you manage him throughout the season to try to get him through the postseason. And Daryl Morey, like, you may have to question his decisions, because he brought James Harden in because they have a past relationship, and maybe it wasn't the most logical thing. Daryl Morey also is very big on analytics. He's very big on, like, the three.
Okay.
And so I don't think we can look like the player's the player. The players are always going to be safe. Even if they decide to trade him and move on, it's going to be the players. But you have to question the decisions of people who keep doing the same thing over again, right? So we have a lot of evidence, Daryl Morey, on James Harden, and you still chose to bring him to the team, right? So you still chose to do that. So, I think there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of blame to pass around in Philadelphia.
Okay.
But you know, there needs to be some introspection.
Listen, I want to know from you. That was a very reasonable explanation. I want to know, are you always this reasonable with players that maybe you don't like so much? For example, okay, what you just said about Joel Embiid makes sense. You said give him the Kawhi Leonard treatment. Let me just move it over to Anthony Davis. Mm-hmm. Maybe give him the Anthony Davis treatment. So are you this patient with Anthony Davis when his body continually breaks down? And it will. Mm-hmm. It will break down again because it's just something that happens with him. Will you say, oh, well, look, he's still a great player. His body breaks down. Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant, who's 5 years older than Joel Embiid. I know you're not always that patient with Kevin Durant, but will you be? Are you going to give Durant the treatment that you just gave Joel Embiid? Are you going to give Anthony Davis the treatment you just gave? Do you give Kawhi Leonard that? Look,
yeah, I do.
If you say, okay, all right, because if you're talking about load managing this guy, yes, you will. It's not may have to, you do. Joel Embiid is 30 years old. He's no kid. And I'm not saying his career is almost over. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But if you talk about management doing things over and over and expecting a different result, well, how foolish are we to say, well, it's going to be different. When you turn 30, your body gets stronger.
Right.
And you'll be able to play 75 games. And Joel Embiid in 2023-24 is going to be healthier and stronger than ever. No, he's not.
Well, I think, Michael, we have to be honest about they were trying to chase an MVP, right? This is a player and a team that felt like for 2 years their guy was slighted for the award, right? So he needed to sort of get to a certain threshold and play a number of games, and they were probably chasing the wrong thing, right? And so I don't think you're going to be seeing that chase anymore. I would be shocked if they try to have Joel Embiid play 60-plus games next year. But that's also going to take him out of all NBA contention, right? There's all these changes to the rules. And players care about those individual awards. They care about them.
He'll play 65. He'll get his 65 games in. He'll get the bare minimum, so he's going to miss 17 regular season games next year. And look, I'm not even being critical. As a matter of fact, I would say how you got your MVP. That's on there. But nobody gives love, historical love, to MVPs versus champions. Like, they'll give love to MVPs, but give more love to champions. So you got your MVP. But now for you to get your championship, Kawhi Leonard, you mentioned him. The year they won, the Raptors won a championship, I think Leonard played 60 games. So he missed 22 games in a regular season intentionally.
Yeah. And
he was a beast in the playoffs. And so I think that's part of it. That's part of it for Joel Embiid. But the other part, and for Philly. But the other part is looking at their roster, Natalie. Mm-hmm. they had nobody who could check Jayson Tatum, really. Like, Tobias Harris has the size, but he's not athletic enough to keep up with them. Tyrese Maxey has the want-to and the guts and the will, but he's 6'1". James Harden doesn't want to play defense. He's 6'5". Melton, not really up for Niang. Yeah, y'all ain't about it.
But they
put
shouldn't
Joel
have needed
Embiid.
that. They shouldn't have
Right,
needed
but they-
that.
but they
Game
do.
6, they had Game 6 on their home court, right? And you should be able to expect James Harden to play like a number 2 because he's your number 2, and he didn't in those
Okay, that's
final 2
part of it.
games, right? And so,
Sure, but what happened? The team that you root for, the team that you love,
yeah,
you saw the treatment. I as a matter of fact, I have turned it into, it's a whole term. There's the Wiggins treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jayson Tatum got the Wiggins treatment last year in the NBA Finals, and he didn't like it. The Wiggins treatment was tough. He didn't like it. He didn't appreciate it at all. And so that is a guy who's his size, just as strong, athletic, versatile, well-conditioned, last year at least, was ready to meet the moment. He gave Jayson Tatum fits. And so if you're trying to win a championship, you got to look around, you got to read the room and say, okay, what's going on in the Eastern Conference? We have to deal with Boston. We're going to have to deal with Cleveland eventually. Cleveland's going to grow up. We have to deal with Miami. They struggled with Miami last year. But last
not a
year,
beaver. Not Miami. I'm not a believer in Cleveland being anything serious. But
okay,
go ahead.
all right,
Yeah.
all right. So throw Cleveland out of it. Let's say Boston and Miami and Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You don't have the horses to deal with those guys beyond Embiid. Okay, Embiid, sure, but nobody really has anybody who can match Embiid. So you got the advantage there, but you better get you some athletic wings who can do some damage and can at least slow down. There's so many wings in the NBA who are incredible, and you don't have a good matchup for any of them.
That's very true. And I'm not trying to undersell the importance of a wing. But I'm just saying, if you have a proper co-star, if you have a proper number 2, which is something also my Warriors have to address, right? Because that is not Klay Thompson anymore. When you have a proper number 2 who can do their job, that's going to offset the disadvantages. There's other defensive schemes that the Sixers can look to deploy. I mean, look at a team like the Nuggets, who I know we're going to talk about. Look at their team. Who's their great defensive wing? You know?
Well,
but they still were able,
hey.
they were still able to deploy a scheme against Kevin Durant in that Game 6, right? So you need a better defensive coach. You need someone who can, Nick Nurse. We saw, he'll go to box and one. I'm just saying, if you're, everyone is not going to have a great athletic wing, right? But you need the right kind of co-star to pair next to Joel Embiid if he's going to continue to be your number 1, or he needs to become your number 2, right? And I don't think that one's possible. So that's what I think.
And the last thing I'll say is, just in all fairness, I'm not here to cape for Doc Rivers. He's doing well. As he said in that press conference, I enjoyed it. He said, hey, well, are you going to be back, Doc? Well, I got 2 years left. That's guaranteed money. Checks don't bounce. That's guaranteed.
Right, it is.
It's millions of dollars. So he's like, okay, you go fire me? Okay, I'm going to get paid anyway. So I'm not here to shed any tears for him. But you got to look at every relationship to kind of come full circle with the relationship analogy. Every relationship, you have to understand what it was before you got there. Sometimes it's time for a breakup, and it hasn't been a failure. You have taken them somewhere they hadn't gone before, and it's time for you to leave. So Doc Rivers got the most out of Joel Embiid, took Joel Embiid to a scoring championship, guided him or presided over his MVP season. In 3 years, they won a bunch of games, but they were never able to knock down the conference finals door. When he got to Boston, they were a bad team. When he left Boston, in the middle of Boston, they were a championship level team, championship contender, and then they were on the downside. Time to go. When he got to the Clippers, come on.
Right.
Punchline. They went from being a punchline to being a team that was expected to contend, and they never got there. And he brought in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And so I think when we look at Doc and say, oh, yeah, he blew a 3-2 lead there, 3-2 lead there, that's all fair. But the full story is he was able to take every situation he inherited, he made it better. Then it was time for him to go. He was never able to push the Clippers and Philadelphia over the top. He'll be somewhere because, as you
think
said in your
so?
feed, yeah, it's a coaching carousel.
I'm curious to see
Mike
if he gets
Budenholzer-
another head job.
He
I'm
will.
curious. I don't know if
Mike
it's happening this
Budenholzer
offseason.
lost in the first round. He lost in the first round. He's a good candidate. Nick Nurse quit before the season was over. He's a candidate right now. Monty Williams,
should
the
be.
owner didn't like him.
Nurse and Monty
Monty
should
Williams-
be.
And Budenholzer too, right?
Bud for the right kind of team. I think he's demonstrated he's the kind of coach you want to build up a young group, right? And kind of, but
Okay.
I don't think he's going to take you over.
All right. I like it. Relationships.
It's been a long time for me, so I hope it's still relevant. I haven't been there in a while.
As hard as we thought level 2 was, it's going to be even harder, this round. And that doesn't take anything away from GS because that was, I know I've had my battles with that franchise, so I know how hard it is. But as you continue to get up into the numbers, and like you said, level 3 is just a very difficult challenge. Both teams are, one step away from having an opportunity to play for what they started in the beginning of the year, and that's to play for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. So it becomes very challenging.
I don't think, we don't look at this as pressure. We look at this as fun. We look at it as an opportunity. We're finally healthy, which we haven't been the last 2 postseasons. So we all understand that when we started the year off, our goal was not to get to the Western Conference Finals. Our goal is to win a championship. We're 8 wins away from doing that. We have a great challenge in front of us. We took care of Minnesota. We took care of Phoenix. Great. But I wouldn't use the word pressure. I think our guys understand what's at stake, the opportunities in front of us, and let's enjoy this process and continue to play the way we played for the first 2 rounds.
All right, you just heard from LeBron James and Michael Malone. He goes by Michael Malone.
Make sure it's Michael. You know how he gets.
Hey, listen, Michael, and I can understand. As somebody who prefers Michael to Mike, I get it, Michael Malone. So we got Nuggets, we've got Lakers, we've got Ashley Nicole Moss. A great opportunity to speak with Ashley Nicole Moss. It's not pressure in speaking with Ashley, it's just fun. Ashley, when you look at this series, the Nuggets were the #1 seed for most of the year in the Western Conference. The Lakers get the headlines. How do you see this series playing out? Is it the Nuggets to lose, the Lakers a better team? How do you see it?
I'm leaning towards right now it being the Nuggets to lose. It is going to be interesting because you have 2 teams who throughout the regular season played at 2 very different paces, right? You had the Lakers top 5 when it came to playing fast, or top 5 in speed rather. So they were a faster playing team. And then you had the Nuggets that were much more towards the bottom. I think they were 25th. So they're a team that likes to play a little bit slower. It's going to be interesting which coach is more successful making that team play at their pace. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you get the Lakers to play at a slower pace, that the Nuggets will be able to go ahead and capitalize off of that. I don't think the Lakers will perform as well playing slower. However, on the other side of that, I also think that the Nuggets will struggle, at least Jokic. I think the supporting cast around him won't struggle playing faster if the Lakers force him, but I think Jokic will struggle the most if they go ahead and change the pace of the game, which could be monumental in taking him out of the game in some capacity. With that said, I think LeBron's going to do what LeBron always does, but I think Anthony Davis has the toughest task in the series of guarding Jokic. I'm not worried about him so much offensively. I think that, as we all know, Jokic defensively, there are a lot of holes in his game, so I think AD will be able to score, but I don't think he's going to be that successful in making sure that Jokic doesn't. Defensively, he has one hell of a task, and I think that's going to be really interesting in how he combats that. Now, if he's able to do that successfully, I think the Lakers stand a good chance. But as we've seen, Jokic is not an easy person to stop. So I'm interested to see how that plays out tonight.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very interesting matchup, and it's sort of hard to get a read on the 2 teams because the 3 times that they played each other, it was early in the season. It was before the Lakers made their moves, right? So we don't really have a lot of information about how this version of the Lakers matches up with the Nuggets. And I think it's important to point out that Denver has not only a home court advantage, but they have an altitude advantage, which is unique to them. We saw in the last series, the Suns went in there a day early to try to adjust, and that didn't really do anything for them. The Nuggets also haven't lost a game at home yet in the postseason. I don't think it's going to be as easy for the Lakers, and it wasn't actually even that easy for them to do it, but I don't think it's going to be as easy for them to go in and steal a game one as it's been in their prior two series, which is really key in them wanting to win this series. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Like LeBron James, Jokic is a master at controlling pace. The Lakers like to play fast in terms of their fast breaks, like, Ashley noted. And so they want to try to create some havoc on defense and run the break really quickly. But that's not like going back on the other side, right? So like they don't want to necessarily play as fast if you're talking about defense, because that's going to wear LeBron James down. That's going to wear Anthony Davis down as well. So it will be interesting to see how they try to control the game. I also think a really unique thing about Jokic is that, not unique, but a really great thing about Jokic is that he won't have to, and I think Ashley pointed this out in the last series when she kept talking about the Suns and their lack of depth. Like, he doesn't have to go out and score 30, right? Like, he can set up his teammates, and he can get assists, and so he can impact the game. So even if you limit Jokic, you're not really limiting him. And so,
Great point.
And the last thing, the Lakers are going to have to guard everybody on that team. There's no Draymond Green. There's no Looney. There's no one who you can just say you're not going to guard. You have to guard everyone, and that's going to change how they have to defend them schematically.
And I will say that I think that the Nuggets have an advantage and they have a more consistent supporting cast. You know what LeBron's going to give you. For the most part, this postseason, I think, has redeemed him a little bit. You know what Anthony Davis is going to give you. At least you hope you know what Anthony Davis is going to give you. But Lonnie Walker's not always going to have the Lonnie Walker game. The rest of the supporting cast isn't going to have those explosive games that we saw in the Warriors series. At least they don't have it consistently. You know what Aaron Gordon will give you. You know what MPJ will give you. You know what the rest of those guys will go ahead and give you. You know what Jamal Murray will give you. So I think that that's also going to be an interesting task for the Lakers, is how do you go ahead and stop the starting five of the Nuggets that I would say is more consistent than the starting five of the Lakers as a whole. Everyone can have an explosive game. Everyone can have, insert name here, the game. But who can do it consistently? And the Nuggets have shown that their cast of players are players that you can depend on night in and night out. And that's going to be a tough task for the Lakers, and they have to figure out how to go ahead and contain those guys.
Yeah.
I will say this. Let me ask you both about this, because, Natalie, you bring this up in your feed about the Lakers being overrated and the Nuggets being
a little.
underrated. I will say,
I don't want to have these Lakers fans like
no.
A little.
I got it. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No, we ain't worried about that. Listen, we ain't worried about it. We ain't worried about Twitter. We ain't worried about social media. We ain't worried about it. I would say, for the most part, there's some franchises. I'd say the Celtics never have to worry about being underrated. Lakers, not underrated. They have the Dubs. Nobody really says they're underrated. They get so much attention. But you look at a franchise like Denver. Okay, Denver Nuggets have never been in the NBA Finals. Okay, they've never been there. Never. Their franchise has never been in the NBA Finals. So, and they play, there is an East Coast bias. I have one. East Coast bias, shout out, yes. And so, I think their fans, rightfully so, look at it and be like, damn. Even when y'all talk about Lakers Nuggets, y'all really talking about the Lakers, but y'all haven't looked at our team. And I think they're right. The Nuggets are underrated.
I haven't underrated. Not me, Michael. Don't put me in the mix. I haven't underrated them at all this season.
These are not your auntie's Denver Nuggets. Shout out Kiki Vandeweghe. Shout out Alex English. Shout out Dan Issel. Fat Lever. Okay, this is a really. So Ashley, you haven't underrated them, but do you think they're underrated? I think Natalie brings up a great point.
I think they're underrated on a larger scale because they play in Denver. It's not the most sexiest market. I can't say how many people were actually watching Nugget games during the regular season. This is probably the most they've watched them play this entire season. So sometimes you're a victim of your environment. I think that the Miami Heat deal with that often too. They don't get a lot of national games. Maybe the Nuggets probably get more because of Jokic, but the Miami Heat's notorious for that. And then they come in the postseason and everyone's like, holy crap, where'd this team come from? They've been doing this all season. Y'all just weren't paying attention. So I think they're a victim of that. I think, sometimes the games aren't the most exciting. I feel like the Nuggets sometimes, at least in the regular season, you have to be a true basketball enthusiast to really enjoy it. I kind of equate it to the old-time San Antonio Spurs with Tony Parker and Ginobili and Tim Duncan, those guys. It wasn't, the most flashy and the glitz and the glamour. It was pure, true basketball. And if you're not an enthusiast, it may not have been the most exciting for you. But I actually think both these teams are underrated for different reasons. I think that the Lakers, I was one of the non-believers in the Lakers, and, the jury's still out on what they do with a team that's just as good, or in this case, better than them. Some can say their path to, this position may not have been the hardest, although I was someone who thought the Warriors were going to knock them out. So I was surprised by that series, and they earned my respect in that regard. So I underrated them going into the season because of what we saw early on. They did not look great. They looked in disarray. Even after the trade, they still didn't look that good. I go back to April, and I think there's a tweet out there, and they'll probably find it if the Lakers go to the finals, where I said, this is the Lakers team you expect me to think can go to the NBA finals. I wasn't impressed. They have definitely changed my opinion, but I think a lot of people underrated them early in the season, and rightfully so. They did not look like a team that was going to go this far.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to stick by my feeds, and I think that the Nuggets are a little underrated. And I guess you can count me as someone that underrated them, though I don't think I underrated them, but I am someone who, you have to show me something before I'm going to believe in you. And that's really all it is. So it's not that I ever doubted the talent of Jokic. It's you got to come back and see what Jamal Murray is going to be, right? You have to come back and see them do that. And there's reasons to have doubted the Nuggets. They, as a number one seed in the West, they're in terms of wins for the season, it's one of the lowest a number one seed has had in years. They don't actually present as like the Celtics were closer to 60, right? But they don't present like a typical number one dominant team. We've all talked about how there's been parity across the league. So, I don't know that the teams are as great right now. So you just don't know, right? So it's not to take away from the greatness of Jokic and what Jamal Murray, who I think is going to be the X factor in this series, can potentially do. But we got to see it. And until you see it, I'm not just going to crown you. So that's sort of how I approach things. When it comes to the Lakers, I think, and it's my own Warrior squad, yes, and of course people are going to think I'm biased, but I think they beat a very flawed Warriors team, right? And so that's why I'm saying that, well, I knew the Warriors were flawed, so I'm not going to suggest that I didn't know that, but I like Ashley.
Time out.
I didn't think that
Time out. What? Wait, what? Gary,
come on.
Gary, did you hear this?
We've talked about this during the season.
They weren't nearly as deep as some previous Warriors team that went far.
I
think
know.
That also
I've never
said that they were. I just didn't think that the Lakers.
I heard you say this before. I heard this before.
You've heard me talk about Klay Thompson and his ego. You've heard me talk about all those things. And I don't think anybody, if you're telling me you predicted the Lakers would be able to say, we are not going to guard Klay Thompson. We're just not going to guard him. If anyone is telling me they predicted that ahead of the series, Ashley talked about Jordan Poole and the points we rely on for him. Did anyone think Jordan Poole was just not going to show up? In Game 7, no one had double digits besides Stephen Curry. So, that's crazy. That's not something I can predict or foresee. So you beat and the Lakers, as much as they would love to take credit, they did not do all of that. They didn't cause all of that. Draymond Green and the dysfunction and other things going on with the Warriors that are now starting to leak out. There's other reasons for their dysfunction. So you beat a very flawed Warriors team. Now you're beating a team that is not flawed. They have been playing, you're playing a team that has been rolling all season. If the Lakers can beat the Nuggets, then I will see them differently. But right now, I think they're still being a little overrated.
Ashley, I like the look on your face when you said, when Natalie said, hey, the Lakers didn't do that to the Warriors. You disagree that the Lakers did do that to the Warriors, or you think it's self-inflicted, the Warriors just kind of melted down on their own?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. Like nobody knew. She's right that Jordan Poole was going to go MIA the way that he did, and I think that there's truth to that. I think the Lakers also capitalized correctly on the faults of or the shortcomings of the Warriors, the gaps in this Warriors team. Because it could have been that the Warriors it could have been that the Lakers still lost this series because they did not capitalize correctly on those gaps. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that a team had the chance to beat a team that was in complete disarray from the inside out and just didn't go ahead and do it. We're still talking about Steph Curry. We're still talking about Klay Thompson. If they were given the opportunities to go ahead and rise, and taking Steph out of the equation, if we're going to go ahead and give Klay Thompson and the other people on the team, the supporting cast on the team, an opportunity to still rise to the occasion, they still could have won. But I think the Lakers did a good job in making sure that did not happen. So I think that there's a little bit of there's truth to both. I wouldn't say I lean more to one side or the other, but the Lakers did capitalize on a lot of the holes in this Warriors team.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I would agree with that. I think that Ham outcoached Steve Kerr. I think he hit all the right buttons. He brought in Lonnie when he needed, unlike Kerr, who benched Kuminga for a series because you were mad about something from the first series, right? Like,
don't appreciate him.
That's very smart thing to do. I mean, Dennis Schroeder, he impacted the Warriors guard. So all of those, knowing those right adjustments and things to pull, Ham did it, and I got to give him credit. And their players went out and executed it. Like you said, you may have had one or two Austin Reeves games or a Lonnie Walker game. It may have not been one role player each game, but they got something. He knew the right places to go for each game to get something from his guys.
Yeah, I tell you, and the last thing I'll say on the Dubs is this. After you win it, and this is not just a Dubs thing, this is for all teams. Once you win a championship, it's probably not the best time for you to go spending. Put your credit card away for a little bit. You win a championship and you feel so good about what you've done. Hey, Jordan Poole, of course we're going to sign you. Of course we're going to sign you to this big contract. We just won a championship. Look what you did in the playoffs last year. You get so excited about what you've accomplished, and I understand it. You're not really thinking about the long-term effects. So I know it's a tradable contract. Every contract in the NBA is tradable. Not the contract, but it's the player. What's the value of Jordan Poole this year versus this time last year? This time last year, you're like, oh yeah, I take him. Ashley, you would have taken him on the Knicks this time last year. Now you say, please, get that dude out of here. And so I think they had a lot of their history kind of affected their decision-making and their talking. And Natalie, you pointed this out before, that Steph is not usually the one talking like this. She was Jordan Poole, well, not even Draymond, Klay, we've done it before, this is who we are, we're the best, can't beat us. But it's a new reality for them. It's a new reality. Final word, Natalie, before we say goodbye and keep it moving.
Yeah, I don't think the Warriors rushed anything by signing Jordan Poole. You had Tyler Hero getting his contract. It's what the market dictated, because you lock him up earlier now, because if he did come back and he had a great season, then you'd have to pay him even more. So they did the right thing by signing him. And Jordan Poole for the regular season averaged 20. It was his postseason that was the problem, not the regular season. So
empty numbers though, empty 20.
But that's due to the Warriors. That's not due to Jordan Poole. And I think most teams will understand that, because it's the structure and the support they put around him. I mean, most people, you had Greg Anthony who tweeted when stuff when Poole was having the struggles, and he's like, I wonder if there's something that happened in the beginning of the season. I don't think most people are looking at Jordan Poole and thinking he's a lost cause. So if they should have to trade him, and that's likely what might happen, I think they'll be able to find a trade partner for him. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
All right, Ashley, always great to see you.
The three
sorry
Splash
about the
Bros was
Knicks.
fun while it lasted.
What?
Yeah.
You know,
Hey,
the
What
three
was it?
Splash Brothers. It was the triplet Splash Brothers was
Oh, yeah.
fun while it lasted. You know, it was good. It was
Listen, I am
fun.
so annoyed with Draymond. Don't even get me started.
and by the way, Ashley, sorry about the Knicks. Sorry it had to end that way in the 305. As you predicted.
I
You
wasn't going to
predicted
do
it's
it
going-
to you, Ashley. I wasn't going to do it to
Hey,
you.
Ashley said we going to lose in the 305. If we lose,
She
it's going
didn't
to be
say
the
that.
305.
She didn't
I
say
said if we lose.
Ashley, I won't do that to you, girl.
I appreciate it.
Ashley. We appreciate you, Ashley.
Bye,
It's all
y'all.
love. Tonight, it's the night for Victor Wembanyama, the 7'5" French prospect who can do it all. He can shoot from three. He's got a handle. He can finish. He can pass. Unbelievable. And these three teams, Tom Haberstroh, these three teams have the best chance of getting him. The very awful Detroit Pistons, the very awful San Antonio Spurs, and the very awful Houston Rockets. So I want him to go to the Pistons. I'd love to see this artistic, gifted player in Detroit, home of so many gifted musicians over the years and talented artists. Where would you like to see Victor Wembanyama wind up?
Yeah, to me, it would be super fun to see Greg Popovich with Victor Wembanyama, and it would justify holding on to the head coaching gig over there in San Antonio, the rebuild. It just pained me to see that Greg Popovich would hold on and go through the DeJounte Murray era, that seeing Derek White go to the Boston Celtics, basically bottom out over the last couple seasons for like nothing. I don't want to see that. I want to see Pop rewarded. I'm based here in Charlotte. That would also be very cool to see Michael Jordan, as he departs as an owner, bring in Victor Wembanyama. But they've had some lottery bad luck when we talk about Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at number 2 instead of Anthony Davis. A lot of people in Charlotte are dreading tonight because they just feel like Lady Luck is never going to bless them. And we saw what happened after they got Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. It is a big drop from 1 to 2. And I think this year it is as big a drop from 1 to 2. Even though there's a lot of hype with Scoot Henderson, I really do believe that Victor Wembanyama is the best prospect since LeBron. And I want to see what Pop can do with Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, I think San Antonio offers the best structure, and coach, obviously. But I also, with Holley, it would be such a great thing for Detroit. It's like I'm thinking about the cities. And then Houston has the history, of a big man before. So, it's like for the cities, the people in those cities, I like him going to any of the three teams, but I do think in terms of his development and flourishing and knowing you're going to a stable structure, the Spurs are probably the best place for him to land.
I'm thinking, Stro, I wonder, and Stro, you're frozen a little bit right now, but I wonder if you can still hear us. There you go.
I was just...
You're enraptured with Natalie's comments. I can see it. You weren't frozen. You're just like, oh my God.
I do have that.
But I wonder, you say, all right, best prospect since LeBron in 2003. And LeBron went to a really bad Cleveland team. I think they had won 17 games a year before. Then they get to the 30s. And then they didn't make the playoffs. Next year, they win something like 40-some games, still didn't make the playoffs. I think it was year 3 before they made the playoffs. I know we're thinking ahead. These are all bad teams. What is the effect? Can you see these teams being in the playoffs like in 2 years? Is he that kind of guy where we know the individual talent, but is he such a prospect? Is he so generationally gifted that he comes to your team and you can expect to compete for championships for the next decade?
I think if Victor Wembanyama went to any team in the NBA, they're going to make the playoffs next year. Any team.
Wow.
Any team. San Antonio, Detroit, Houston, especially with the coaching that they have in Houston and in San Antonio. And keep in mind, this dude is averaging over 3 blocks a game and is averaging basically 10% of every shot that is taken on the floor with Victor Wembanyama on the floor, 10% of those shots are being blocked by Victor Wembanyama. So we look at his offensive gifts, the fact that he's able to take a three-pointer and dunk the putback on the same play. On the other end of the floor, he might have the most upside. So it's one thing to be Luka Doncic or LeBron James and be an offensive virtuoso from day one. It's another thing to be a defensive impact player from the moment you step onto the floor. And I think a guy who's 7'5", by the way, Holley, and I think we're getting confirmation what his actual height is, because for the longest time he was 7'3", then he was 7'4". Is he 7'5"? But Brian Windhurst, my guy at ESPN, in his profile this week, he said he was 7'5". So I'm going with 7'5". And I got to say, wouldn't it be crazy if the Oklahoma City Thunder got Victor Wembanyama to pair him next to Chet Holmgren, next to J-Dub, next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? That would be, I think, in terms of all the teams in the lottery, that would be the most high upside. Like day one, they're a championship contender if he gets to OKC.
They don't deserve that.
The skinny guys social club right there. Like all them like pairing up together. You know, you talk about the height changing from 7'3", 7'4", 7'5". Reminds me of that old line from Red Auerbach where they would measure players in their socks, and Red Auerbach would be like, well, who the hell plays basketball in their socks? measuring them in their sneakers. That's what the official height. I don't care how tall you are in your socks. How tall are you when you put the shoes on? All right, let me switch gears because Tom, I know you spent a lot of time, covering the Miami Heat and keeping up with them. And I probably have read 75 Pat Riley profiles. I'm always down for number 76. I can't get enough of the Pat Riley stories, whether it's quoting generals, quoting poets, or some of the crazy stuff he has challenged his players and assistant coaches to do. What is it? What is it about the Miami Heat in the conference finals? I want every part of my being wants to dismiss them. I want to say Celtics in 5. I'm going to say Celtics in 5. It's probably not going to be Celtics in 5. What is it about the Miami Heat that I'm missing, that we all miss, and they wind up in this position once again? What is it? Tell me the secret.
They do the work. I mean, you can say what you want about South Beach mentality and the idea that it's a vacation spot. And believe me, when I went down there to Miami to cover that 2010 team, they did their preseason training camp at a military base. That is what we're talking about here. For all of what we talk about, like the late showing audience, that first row is always late at halftime. That's about the clubs in the arena. That's not about the Miami Heat, the actual players. Playoff Jimmy, Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was on his way out of the NBA a few months ago. We were ready to bury that dude's NBA career, and now he's a pivotal impact player against the New York Knicks and in the previous series against Milwaukee Bucks. Like this team, they got 16-game players. Draymond Green said it best. There's 82-game players and there's 16-game players. It takes 16 wins to win a championship, and those guys are on the Miami Heat's roster. You say Boston Celtics in 5. I cannot bet against playoff Jimmy. This dude is unbelievable what he does to step up his game and raise the tide of everybody else around him. I'm sticking with the Miami Heat beating the Boston Celtics here in this upcoming conference finals. He called it last year. When they got bounced in the conference finals, he said, we will be back and we will win next time. And beyond all reasonable doubt, he did it. Jimmy Butler back on the stage. I am not betting against that dude to lose in this series.
I like it.
Yeah. Wow. That prediction does shock me a little bit. How many games do you have them winning in, did you say?
I got Heat in 6. They're not going to be Heat in 7. Not going to be Heat in 5. Just like it was Knicks. Just like it was Knicks Heat part 6. It's going to be Heat in 6. Look, man, like this series is going to come down to who's going to hit their shots. We saw Jayson Tatum do absolutely lay an egg. 7 points there at point in the series and then drop 51. The inconsistency of the Boston Celtics offense with the rookie head coach. I just feel like Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat have a lot of veteran leadership on that team, on the sidelines, upstairs. And I think they have a better surrounding core than what we saw last year. So I think the Miami Heat do it. They shock the world and get to the NBA Finals.
Well, hold on, Spo. Hold on, Stro. I was about to call you Spo. I was about to call you Spo. That's right. Listen, man. How's the supporting cast better than last year? You have Hero out.
Yeah.
You got Duncan Robinson back. You got Gabe Vincent back. You got Lowry back. Like, Kevin Love? I mean, what's better? What's better than last year?
Well, first of all, Tyler Hero got hurt last year's series too, so they didn't get all of Tyler Hero. He was hurt in the series. And then also you throw in the fact that Kyle Lowry's playing the way he has been, and Gabe Vincent has been outrageously good for a guy who was not drafted. He's playing playoff rotation player and above in this postseason. I think also Kevin Love does bring that kind of veteran leadership and the rebounding that can hurt the Celtics and the spacing. And I think just in general, when you talk about the Miami Heat, they had a really tough time shooting the ball in the regular season, bottom 5 in three-point field goal percentage, but they've done a really good job. You saw it against the Milwaukee Bucks, spacing the floor and being able to handle Giannis Antetokounmpo with multiple bodies and limiting his scoring opportunities. I think Jayson Tatum is in for a rude awakening after what we saw against the Philadelphia 76ers. Now that he's going to go up against Jimmy Butler and that defense, Bam Adebayo, I think it's going to be a really rough series for the Boston Celtics. I think Heat are going to pull it off.
Tom, who is the best player in the series? Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, Jimmy Butler. Playoff Jimmy Butler.
Stop
if you're talking about regular season?
Stop. No, he's not. No, we're talking about player.
In this
player.
series.
Period.
In this series,
Who's the
you
best
think
player?
Jimmy Butler's the best player?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Okay.
Playoff Jimmy.
This is...
You said a lot, Tom. I'm still trying to process it. Okay.
Tom, Natalie, can I just say, this is what bothers me. I want the Jimmy Butler treatment in my life. And this is the equivalent of the Jimmy Butler treatment. You remember all the good things I've done, all the good things I've said, all the stupid things I've done, all the screw-ups, go away. Nobody ever talks about it. So we talk about Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy, but there have been 9 for 24s.
Yes.
There have been 6 turnovers. He has not won a damn thing in his whole career, but we still talk about playoff Jimmy as if he's won something. It's crazy.
Jayson Tatum
he gets more grace than anybody. He gets more grace than anybody in the NBA.
I wouldn't say, well,
come on.
Jayson Tatum, what he just did in Game 7 was spectacular. He went into Giannis's building last year and showed up. I mean, he has those games where he shows up. This dismissiveness of him.
Go ahead,
Jimmy
Go
Butler
ahead.
leads
Final
all
word.
scores in the postseason. Jimmy Butler leads all scores this postseason, 31 points a game. I do believe, I didn't say Jayson Tatum, I said Jimmy Butler leads all scores in the postseason.
And that means he's better than them?
Ooh. All right, you walk off. That's a good walk off, Stro. Good to see you, baby. Thanks for the
Better
time.
than Jokic then. I guess he's better than Jokic because he
coming
leads all
back.
scorers.
Natalie, we're all grown up. Peacock, Wildcard playoff game exclusively right here on Peacock. It's all about Peacock. Go ahead, Peacock your arms. Go ahead and do it. We made the big time. How you feel about it?
Yep. Go ahead. Get your Peacock app. Get your subscriptions.
Appreciate y'all. See you tomorrow. Enjoy the games. Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.